Welcome to HortTube. My name is Jim Putnam, and this is an update on the Propagation House. I'm actually going to pull the rooted cuttings out and see where we are in terms of where they've rooted and what we can pull out of the house to make room for some other things. I ended up not using this shade cloth. I've got a tree over here that shaded this house a little more than I had anticipated, so it just has not been as hot in this house. I actually probably would have liked a little more heat in it, honestly. I haven't had to run this fan unit that I had put in here. I basically just have two holes cut in the plastic, one on each end, and that's been plenty to vent the little bit of heat that's been in it. It was also cloudy early on too, so that also kept it a little cooler than I probably would have wanted, but everything looks good. I'm gonna pull these out and we'll take a look at them and see what needs to go back in for a little longer and what can come out and make some room for us to start sticking some more things in here on next week's episode. But first I want to show you some of the cuttings from the nursery. I wanted to show you these rooted cuttings from my commercial greenhouse from last summer, which all look absolutely perfect. They've actually just been pruned and fertilized. There's tens of thousands of rooted cuttings here. Things like these frost-proof gardenias right here, we just cut them in half. Took the foliage off, fertilized them. They'll flush right back out, but they can actually be held for a pretty long time in these flats until we're ready for them to pot up into larger containers. If you've watched all the videos in this propagation series, you know that I did not fertilize them when we stuck the cuttings. There's really no point in doing so. They don't have roots to really take the fertilizer up. So I wait until they've rooted in, and then we do a top dress fertilizer on them. I've just re-fertilized these cuttings, and they were just overwintered in an unheated house in zone 7B. If I'd have been in 7A, I'd have probably had to apply some heat to it. Definitely in zone 4, 5, or 6, you're definitely gonna have to put them in a heated house. They need to be cold though. You can't really keep them 65 or 70 degrees or they'll try to grow. They'd still need to go dormant like they would outside. So we'd wanna set the temperature somewhere in the mid to upper 30s probably would be ideal. All of those cuttings you just saw were rooted in this propagation house. This is 34 feet wide and 72 feet long. And the house that I have put in my backyard in this propagation series is just a scaled down version of this exact same thing. I'm using the exact same irrigation heads, a very similar clock system that I have on the wall over there. And there are fans in here to move the air, just like the type of fan system that I put in that little house. And we've gotten very similar results from both. I was really surprised. I did not know if the scaled down version of this would perform as well as it has. So I pulled 5 flats out of the greenhouse. The flat that we had done in the last episode with the camellias and the nandinas, I know it won't root anytime soon, so I just didn't bother pulling it out. This was one of the first flats we had done with some August Beauty gardenias, and these have just absolutely beautiful roots on them. No problem with those. These privet right here are rooted, but not rooted enough to actually pull out the plug yet. This one right here hasn't done anything yet. It has got a callus on the bottom, so I think it will end up rooting, and neither has this one. Hopefully you can see, if I cover it up with my hand, you can see where that thing is calloused at the bottom. It's an enlarged place at the bottom of that cutting. That's where the roots are gonna initiate from. So that one's not quite finished. And then here's some spirea right here. The spirea has tons of new roots on them, just not rooted in enough to pull the whole cell out yet. I have overwatered these recently. The days are starting to get a little bit shorter. We're in August now, and the days do get shorter. It's still very, very hot, but they don't need as much water. I'm going to have the water come on a little later in the morning now. I may wait until 9 or 9:30 and have it go off maybe an hour earlier in the evening, and that will reduce the volume of water I'm putting out every day. The next tray over here has some crepe myrtles in it that are actually rooted so well I can't pull them out. They're rooted through the bottom. Here's a lantana. I'd already shown you these earlier. Beautiful roots on these. Our Nellie Stevens hollies are rooted, but not enough to pull one out. Here's another crepe myrtle. Okay, this one I can get out. It has rooted out of the bottom, completely out of the bottom. It's absolutely beautiful. Here's some sky pencil hollies right here. Same thing as those Nellies. They've got roots on them, but they're not enough. They're resisting me pulling them out, but not enough to have rooted completely in yet. This tray in the back, these are some beauty berries. These are very, very easy to root. I would hate to fail on beauty berries, honestly. Azaleas here. I may have this medium a little too wet for azaleas liking. This is calloused and not rooted. Oh, I take that back. It does have one small root coming off the side of it right there. Put that back in and pinch it back in place. Our ligustrum right here. Beautiful roots on it. So we're doing pretty well here. We've rooted about 60 or 70% of what we've put in. On my blueberry propagation series, I had done this blueberry flat, and you'll see some off-color leaves. It's just no big deal. Any leaf that falls off, we'll discard those. These are calloused. This tray is definitely going to have to go back in the greenhouse. This has started rooting. I don't know if you can see that root coming out of the bottom of it. It is calloused. Blueberries tend to get little stringy roots on them. Beautiful callousing. I think we'll end up rooting about 80% of that tray. No problem. These were some herbaceous perennials we had done. These are, in fact, rooting. Little roots coming all out of the side of that. Right there. Butterfly bushes are rooting in quite well. Like I say, I've got this tray too wet though. I really need to back off on the amount of watering going on, but they are rooted. And then these asters here, let's see. Okay, I just pulled that. I unearthed it. It does have roots on it. You can see right there. So this tray is rooting as well. These perennials are rooting. Blueberries are starting to root. I'm gonna put those two trays back in. These three trays are basically, everything has roots on them. I'm gonna bring them out and put them under my deck. And I may hit them with a little bit of water over the top just to get the foliage re-wet, because they're so used to having that water on their foliage. Maybe once a day the next couple of days, but I don't want to get this soil any wetter than it is right now. I really want to get this soil dried out as quick as possible. That'll encourage them to get rooted into these trays a little faster. But I think we have 3 trays here that are ready to come out, 2 that need to go back in. That's going to give us space in that little house to do 3 more trays over the next few weeks. It'll be a little difficult to see on this clock. This is the same clock I've been using the entire season. It's in the early videos. I showed how to set it up and everything. It's 7:21 in the morning now when I'm shooting this. I've had this thing coming on at 8 a.m. all season, and I'm going to move that up to 9 a.m. and try that. That will reduce quite a bit of water that we're going to use. The clock comes on at 8 and goes off at 6 p.m. I may end up moving that back to 5. It's not, the cycle's not going to start until 9 o'clock. I changed the cycle start time, but the clock itself is on and available from 8 a.m. until 6 p.m. every night. I can set the start time. The way I set the end time is just to move this, the time that the clock is alert and ready to water, back to 5 o'clock. I'm just going to leave it at 6 for now. It's still pretty hot at that time of day. So I've reduced an hour off the clock. I have it coming on only 2 seconds every 5 minutes. The one flaw I have found in this clock is, you see it's on 5 right now. It only allows me to go up to 10. I can't go back to 6. I'd really like to put it at 6 or 7 minutes apart on my cycles to reduce the water that way, but I'm going to have to use other strategies. I think 10 minutes is too far apart with these unrooted cuttings, and 5 is too close. So I'll just have to live with that. I'm going to have it come on later. As the days get shorter, I will move this up to 10 minutes apart on the cycles. So as you can see, this little backyard propagation house is pretty good. I'm actually a little surprised. Like I say, I did not know whether the scaled down house would be as good as it has been. So feel very fortunate that that's worked out. I'm going to build a slightly larger one next year with a metal frame that's a little more permanent in this space. So I'll have another episode next week. We'll start to put some different things in here to fill this house back up. So thanks for watching, and if this video was helpful, please hit the like button and subscribe to my channel for future videos. Also comment below with any questions you have about propagation. Thanks again.